So this is director's commentary for Wheels of Mercy. The reason I wanted to show this is that this really does play into when an idea moves into development and how we put a film together by doing some test shooting, creating some short films and some content. Sometimes it's just a trailer to give people a sense of where we're going to go with the film. As you can see, I was a young filmmaker. I didn't even know how to open a film with intrigue. I didn't even add music to this, but I needed to take a lot of information and get it to the audience very quickly so that we could start the film. As you can see here, this was really bad filmmaking on my part. I kind of showed my positioning as far as how I felt about everybody in the film before they even saw it. So they knew I was thinking about it in a proactive way and probably versus an objective way.
More than 50% of my reason to come here is because of the stories of...
So this first part of the film is really about just introducing our characters. I was shooting these interviews on the fly. I just blindly shooting these. If I had light, I'd shoot it. If I didn't, I didn't. And a lot of these shots were really, in the big picture, this was where we were casting, is that Tom wanted to ride with these guys. A lot of these people in these shots are the main characters in the film that we still know today, 15, 20 years later.
It's an incredible platform by which to tell the Rwandan.
And Tom had really wanted to ride his bike and see if there was potential there for a race team. For me, I wanted to see if there was potential for a story. So these were all locations that we ended up using in the film that allowed us to just kind of really work fast when we were on the ground, because we knew where all these places were a year later when we went back and started filming. So one of the things I learned about cycling was you have to move the camera. This is a shot I didn't move the camera on, and it really is static. So I'll talk about later how I got those shots as a one-man band and moving the camera so quickly. This was our hotel. These guys met us in the parking lot. It was very interesting. I was trying to rip these shots very quick before these guys all got going, and in the film you can tell that these guys wanted to ride. They were there to ride bikes and to show Tom that they were capable of becoming professional cyclists. And asking these specific questions while you're trying to shoot something, get interviews and everything else, is probably where you start to refine the skill of becoming a documentary filmmaker, because you pivot fast and you see things and you're just grabbing it, and then knowing that you can go back and get interviews that can fill these things in. But every night you kind of have to remember what you shot so that you can come back and make sure you can piece it all together. So these shots that I shot on the bikes, this all happened off the back of a motorcycle. I would sit backwards on this little, 150 motorcycle. I didn't wear a helmet. I was really stupid back then. It was the only way to get the film made and keep the thing moving so I could stay up with them versus being in a truck. And we learned that about 2 days in. Motion creates emotion. I've said it 100 times. It just added life to these kind of static mountain bike shots that you typically see.
So we're seeing what their culture is all about.
Every steel bike that you see here is pretty standard, pretty basic, one-speed coaster brake.
And this kind of started to bring the backstory. Tom, as one of the inventors of the mountain bike, was discovering the bike technology while he was there, so it added this component to the story that later became very important as a conflict point, that if these guys were going to the Olympics and they were riding wooden bikes, that would probably be pretty challenging, because it showed the obstacles that these guys were having to come from, but also the ingenuity. And Tom kind of would describe these bikes and was fascinated by it. So it added some energy and humor to the story that I knew later I could compound on. And I would find this that I only used 2 or 3 of these shots, but it worked really well for this to kind of expand on bike building and technology and where some places are. So we went on a safari and shot most of this out of the roof of a safari vehicle. Tom wanted to ride with wild animals, so he dropped the bike off, and these are tough shots because you've got to wait that the animals don't take off on you. And I just got lucky with this. There's no other way around it. He chased him out, and we got quite a few shots for this, and it really worked. But it brought life. It brought Africa to the forefront. And so it's always important for me to get these shots that bring the personality of a place forward. And this was a simple jib shot. I just held the camera over the front of the boat and just brought it up to do a simple reveal. And so we covered a lot of the country on this trip. So we were, as you'll see later with other tools that we used. But these were, shots that just kind of gives you a sense of adventure and excitement. And, the water on the lens kept happening. That was great, but it didn't add. I was glad it settled down because I kept having to wipe off the lens because I was getting salt water on it, which I knew was not good for cameras. So one of the things that was really challenging with this film is learning how to transition. So I just transitioned with crossfades because I didn't know how to do that. Later, as I became a better filmmaker, I learned to shoot transition shots. Now this was a great location, but it was really hard to shoot this because I was just having to pick up all these quick things and then just ask the cast what they were feeling and what they were thinking, as it was just complete chaos going on around me. And then in the back of my mind, I knew what had happened here. So it was this place that felt so full of life, and I was having so much fun, but I didn't even have a chance to process what was actually happening there, which kind of led to the next section, which was the history of Rwanda.
This is the one of many sites where
these scenes of the film, I'm having to go into these genocide memorials and shoot these shots that personally I almost just went numb and would shoot the shots, but I also having to keep Tom in the shot so that we understood the context, that it's not just what was there, but these individuals that were taking this journey. And then having to jump back in and grab B-roll shots like that. Then these are very hard interviews as a filmmaker, because you've got to ask them these questions while you're personally going through it and they're still processing it. So there's a lot of trust that had to be built along the way, just shooting little interviews every time to make sure that they would give you the content you needed.
we just visited the regional hospital clinic. There was a lot of need here, but I didn't realize how,
shooting
their
a lot of this in hospitals, a lot of people didn't know what I was doing, so they kind of just went along with it. But you'll notice that they're very quick shots. It's because I didn't want to stay on somebody's face super long. I wanted to kind of let them know that I was just there, but they didn't catch on to what I was doing too quickly. And I also wanted to give them dignity and respect when they're in a hospital. So yeah, this is more 400 miles sitting backwards on a motorcycle. And then I would pick off these bike shots because I thought it would give context to the larger story of using the bike as a tool. And this is the guy who came up with the idea, Dan Cooper. He came up with the idea for Rising from Ashes and put this discovery trip together. And this was me in my attempt to create something cinematic, but it was filler, but it didn't come out great. But it was the only thing I had at the time to fill these gaps of the story. And again, I had a little pocket light here, and I just knew if I got a light in their eye, people would probably endure the fact that it's underexposed, and I just had to crank the exposure in post. But again, the story was really about what I needed, and I thought people would endure the bad cinematography.
We still have a helicopter ride.
So these are the things that kind of come along in a documentary sometimes that you just get excited about. Dan Cooper had a connection with the Rwandan Air Force, and they loaned us this helicopter to, what I wanted it for is to shoot these aerial shots here, which this is what a drone would do now. And I would hang out the back of this with a piece of wire around my waist and It was very stupid again, but these were my drone shots. I had to have a helicopter take off and then come back down just to get those shots. And I would shoot these time lapses when we'd stop. Any time I could shoot, I was shooting. And I put this stuff on sticks because I could shoot at long lens, but all these scenics was just to slow the pacing down and to try to give you a context to where the story took place. But all this was research, so when we went back, you'll see a lot of these same shots in the feature film because I knew where they were. And I kept notes on every place that we went later because I just knew that that's where there was possibility for story. And last is I just shot this shot with negative space, and I wanted to continue to have motion in the shot. So this family just kept staring at me and hung out. And a couple minutes after the shot was over, they came up to the side and I handed them $10, and they didn't know what it was for, but I just appreciated that they relaxed and let me shoot this shot for the credits. So thanks for watching the film, and I hope some of this commentary was helpful.